I feel like from the beginning we imagined it would be 100 years old, 1,000 years old eventually. Like, yeah, we wanted it to be something that would live and grow.
Is Brett, is this more or less kind of what we imagined it would be? Like I'm trying to go back into our heads of 10
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
And like I'm not sure we knew it was going to look exactly like that, but this feels more or less like what we were trying to make.
I think so. I feel like there was a core vision from the very beginning, and that has stuck true, and that has grown, and largely been realized by now.
I think I when we started talking about Sefaria, we talked about creating um a library of all of the existing Torah to date and a platform for the future of Torah. Um, what do you think that like I feel like step one of that we've come quite a long way on.
Yeah,
Step
step one
two
quite a
feels
long
like
way.
maybe it's still in show it.
Yeah. It's happening though. Like, I mean, I think one of the things that's been exciting to see is that, things happen with the text off the site. It's not just the stuff that we're doing on the site itself, but things that people are doing in classrooms and other projects that people are making. It is serving as a platform for people to create new kinds of learning.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's funny. I think you had asked us in 2013, like what's
Yeah.
Safari going to be like in 10 years? We'd have been like, well, it's obviously going to be like in virtual reality.
Right. Yeah.
uh, or it's just the scales at which change happens, the time scales at which change happens, are like at once. It's amazing how much has gotten done in 10 years,
Yeah.
and amazing how much more there is that can be done.
Hmm. Yeah, there are things that are surprising and things that are also just that this was the vision and this is what we tried to do. We've been working on it.
Um, I was also remembering back to like when we first went around and tried to convince people to like partner with us or be,
Yeah.
invest in Sefaria or make the early donations to Sefaria, and how hard it was
Yeah.
to explain this idea to people. And
Yeah.
I
How
don't know.
how skeptical. People were just not very optimistic about a project like this being possible at scale. I feel like we talked to so many people who were like, that sounds great, but it's never going to happen. It's too expensive. It'll take too long. The publishers will never go for it. But that hasn't happened. We've been able to do all those things.
Yeah, is there anything that has surprised you particularly about like how this is all unfolded?
The one thing that I've thought about this that I never really imagined when we were getting started that then turned out to be like amazing and important, is the actual team of people that we have working on Sefaria. Just smart, funny, brilliant people like doing this work together. And that it, becoming a part of our team's real lives. Like, that was something that I never really imagined fully when we were first starting, and as the team started to grow, that was something that was very exciting for me to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how many people on the team have been on the team since
Yep.
basically, if not day one, day two.
Yep. Sure.
I mean, Sarah Wolkenfeld has been with Sefaria for 10 years now.
Yep.
Daniel Septimus has been with Sefaria for almost 10 years now.
Yep.
Um, and Lev Israel is probably what, 8 years?
7, 9 years now. Yep. Just a little
Yeah,
after.
it's and
Mhm.
you just go down the list, and it's so many
Yep.
people who've been doing this for so long, and it feels like they're just also like reaching the peak of their powers in some ways, like as a team, and their
Hmm.
ability to execute and envision and invent. Um, it inspires me.
Yeah, and still excited. Still talk to any of those people or other people on our team too. Just still excited for what's next.
Yeah, I think we were in over our heads from the very moment we started talking about this, right? Like we were the two least likely people to found Sefaria in some ways. And I think it was to our benefit that we didn't know what we were getting into. Um,
Hmm. I think we
like,
had that naive optimism at the beginning, which kept us motivated, of not having quite fully understood the difficulty and scale of everything we were trying to do. I think I remember some of our early grant proposals, like, plotting out the timelines of how quickly we would have all of these texts and all of these translations. And we were optimistic at the beginning that we could go very fast, and we had to learn how these things actually go. But now 10 years later, I think we've accomplished a lot of the things that we wanted to be able to get into the library.
yeah. Um, I mean, one of the things that I find so incredibly satisfying is to see how many different parts of the Jewish world Sefaria touches today. And when we started, I think one of your really, really brilliant early insights, Brett, was like to design the source sheet builder, to design a tool that was um, addressing like an immediate need for educators.
Hmm.
And for the early years of Sefaria, that we didn't have that many texts. We certainly didn't have much translation. Like most of what Sefaria was answering a need for educators to be able to create materials for their classrooms,
Yep.
while all of Sefaria was kind of growing underneath that world. And when we started Sefaria, we talked a lot about how Torah and our textual tradition should be like the glue that brings all Jews together, like the full spectrum of Judaism. And one of the things I am surprised by, I'm actually surprised that that has remained true even
Okay.
after 10 years, that like there hasn't been a fracturing, that one of the beautiful things about Sefaria is that we have on the you can have the same page of text being looked at the same moment in time by somebody in Muncie and somebody in Berkeley and somebody in Jerusalem, who all have very different interpretations of the text and very different
Right.
ideologies, but like are brought together by this core thing that has been the backbone of the Jewish people for thousands of years, which is our
Yeah.
Torah.
Yeah, I remember an early excited moment when we were working on translating. I think it was Eicha Rabbah, I think it was. And I was just like watching different people working on this translation together, and seeing someone who is in Berkeley, California, who I was able to chat with, who was like a very, liberal person, and then someone in Teaneck, New Jersey, a young rabbi, like literally across the country and across ideological sort of the spectrums, like actually just collaborating on the site, on the text, thinking about the translation of the text is something that they worked on together. Early on, we had a lot more emphasis on crowdsourcing and on getting volunteer work to come and help us actually do some of the textual work. And that was, it was a strategy that was perfect for the beginning, because at that time we had no money and we didn't have the expertise really, but what we did have is a small community of people who were really excited about what we were doing, and they were willing to spend donate their time doing textual work and translations and kind of bringing in text from other digital sources. And that was huge for us, because that's a way that we were able to get a little bit of everything into the library early on, at a time when we wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. And that sort of begins this virtuous cycle of, like, once it starts to feel and look like a place where everything is, then it was easier for us to actually raise money and start to do that same kind of work, in a professional way, where we actually are, paying teams of people to do that professionally and not having to rely on crowdsourcing. But that was the boost. The whole project was able to get started because we had hundreds of volunteers coming onto the site and helping us out.
Yeah, and like the numbers are astounding. Like we're a little popular. There are only what 15 million, 16 million, 17 million Jews in the world. I don't know what the number is today. And like what, a quarter of them are on Safari at some point during every year. I mean, look, web statistics are web statistics. You can't necessarily trust them all the way, but certainly, in terms of the number of source sheets that have been created. Do you know what is the current number, Brett? It's close to 400,000, 500,000.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
That's a lot of Torah that people have created on
Yep.
Sefaria. And then you think about, Sefaria is one of the rare nonprofits in the Jewish world that receives a very, very significant portion of its funding from small donors, people who are, donating $18 a month to support Sefaria. Like, there's not much in the Jewish world that has that kind of broad buy-in truly across the Jewish world, and is so much supported by the people whom we aim to serve.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah, I feel like the vision, it always had two parts, and then one part was very clear and the other part was very not clear, right? The library that we envisioned was clear to understand what that is, and that's something that we've been able to realize. But the other part is about the future of learning, and it's about experimenting and playing around and being able to do new and different kinds of things to meet whatever moment of whatever kind of learning is most necessary and most helpful. So I that's what I see, and that's what I'm excited for. It's just more unknowns, more things that we don't know today what they're going to be, they're going to look like. We don't know if we're going to do them or some third party is going to do it with our data. But I think that's very exciting stuff.
Our stated vision that everybody in the company kind of in the organization is subscribes to is a world in which Torah is alive and resonant, and we talk about that a lot. And I think we're in the early days of what feels like a renaissance in Jewish learning that I think Sefaria is going to have a role in, has a role in, that is happening now and is going to continue to happen, and a world in which, the Jewish people are deeply engaged with and knowledgeable of and in conversation with everything that came before them. And this vast tradition is like doesn't just live online, but actually lives online, like is alive, and the conversation is growing and bringing in new participants and new kinds of questions, and it just feels like we're at the beginning of an exciting moment, possibly. And I'm humbled to think that Sefaria is going to have some role in that. What would you tell us if you could go back in time, Brett?
I don't know. Tough question. Just keep it up, right? I don't know.
You didn't enjoy the early days? I loved the early days.
I think we did, but just looking back, there are just so many fun stories and moments, like it was a kind of a ride at first, as we were trying to take each step, and it wasn't clear how it was going to work. It was exciting. It was an exciting time. I'm glad I do remember the stories.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It was really fun. Yeah.
This whole ride has been really fun. And part of the reason it's been really fun is doing it with you, Brett.
Yeah, totally.
We've got a great team, but
yeah, we've had a good time.
Co-founder. And if Sefaria has been a tool for people around the world to engage in chavruta, the chavruta that I've had with you over these last 10 years has been one of the most satisfying things in my life.
All the good.
I'm just so grateful that we both took a chance to keep pursuing this idea when it was just a silly idea.
Yeah, I am too. Glad we could keep each other working on it, because it was a big idea, and alone either of us would have probably given up after a certain amount of time, but we kept with it.
Yeah, that's what
Chavruta.
Yeah. Chavruta mituta.
L'chaim.